All right, welcome. I'm a little hoarse. It's been a very busy year end, so apologize for my voice cracking up here a little bit. But welcome to our last meeting of 2022. It's been quite the robust year for us. Appreciate everybody being here and making time tonight. This is the last city council meeting for 2022, and we'll follow the same agenda as we have in prior meetings. We'll start by reciting a Lord's Prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll get into the business tonight. Thank you.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do have one council member participating remotely tonight. Well, you want to put him under this mic here? Or? Okay. Okay. Council, if we get clerk, if we have a roll call, please.
Absolutely. Tevenall.
Here.
Krebs.
Here.
Lucy DeTillo is currently has an excused absence. Schaefer.
Here.
Chatham.
Here.
And Bartlett is sick. And Dan DeTillo.
Here.
Okay, and for the minutes, we'll reflect that Councilman DeTillo was participating electronically. Council, have you had an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting, December 20th? If so, we'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes as written.
Seconded.
Any discussion, comments, or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, moving on to resolutions or bills. Joe, if you want to walk us through, and I'll invite Deputy Mayor McGee up. She and Clerk Treasurer Rampy will walk us through the core of tonight's business, which is to take care of year-end budget matters.
Yes. If I might, I'll go ahead and just read reduction resolution number 2022-45C. Whereas it has been determined that it is now necessary to reduce appropriation that was appropriated in the annual budget, now therefore be it resolved by the Common Council of the Madison Civil City, Jefferson County, that the foregoing reduction of appropriations are hereby reduced out of the 2022 annual budget for the following funds named and for the purposes specified, subject to the laws governing the same. And those are $100,000 out of personal services and $159,128 out of other services and charges. The foregoing resolution was passed and adopted by the Common Council of the City of Madison, Indiana, at a meeting held on the 30th day of December 2022.
And just as an overview of some of these budget matters we're taking care of, this was part of our financial plan that we talked about in the summer when we were going through the budget process. And then I believe you were provided with a memo from Reedy Financial that talked about the reduction resolution, as well as the additional appropriation discussion we'll have in just a little bit, and year-end transfers. Mindy?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't need to have a lot of introduction about it. We've gone through this several times about what this process is. This is the culmination of almost a full year's work on a lot of people to get our finances and all of our reporting in conjunction with guidance from State Board of Accounts and Department of Local Government and Finance on processes and getting us into a good place to start 2023. Everything that gets approved tonight will set up Katie Rampy, the clerk treasurer, for a good, clean start for 2023 with good financial records and clear reporting. So we're very excited that we are at the end of this. It has been a long, hard road, but happy to answer any questions that you have on this first reduction resolution. This is very similar to what we did on the 20th. There are additional amounts that we are reducing. They are balanced by the other transaction. Reedy's memo did a really good job, I thought, of explaining these amounts and why they needed to move from where they were to where they're going. But again, happy to answer any questions if there are any on this.
How do we avoid having a special meeting and a rush to get these through
So these will.
for next year?
This is only because of the volume of corrections that had to be made. Reedy has had 2 people working, not full-time, but a lot to help us. And then things have to get transacted once they're approved. So it just is time-consuming. Once this is done this year, this will not happen again. It won't need to be done again.
Well, and I would just add to Councilman, part of this is the result of, bringing Reedy in for, basically clerk treasurer, services while we were trying to rebuild the clerk treasurer staffing. So it's transitionary, and I don't expect that that'll happen next year.
No.
No.
And it was truly a deep dive that they did.
It is, and this was a huge cleanup on their part, and it's simply to make sure that we are in compliance with DLGF and SBOA. Once we have these approved tonight, I will go enter them into the gateway, and they will be uploaded, and that will close out 2022 for us.
So my understanding is that for the following year, because of all of this cleanup and the procedure change, we should not have to do year-end transfers again?
We may have to do some transfers always if you can't account for inflation or, we do our best guess in the budget process. So I think you're always going to have some that may need to move around, but
And there'll be appropriated money like this one that we don't spend.
yes.
It is a little awkward, and we talked about this a little earlier, to come to council and say, can we have permission not to spend $259,000 that we had appropriated? But that's what this is doing. And
Okay.
it's essentially reducing our 2022 budget with these changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
It's
this
a
is-
positive thing.
This is part of the 1.1 that's going to revert to the general, which was important for us to do. And it's actually going to be more than the 1.1 because there are still many, many, many line items throughout all the budgets that we haven't spent that's going to revert. Smaller, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 in the line items. It's all going to revert to the general if it's that where it came from. So that's at a minimum 1.1 that we're reverting. So it is a good story, and all of these changes, it's not adding anything to the budget. It's just switching.
It's reducing it.
We do need a motion and a second, and then we'll see if there's any additional discussion on the resolution.
I move to approve Resolution 2022-45 as presented.
I second the motion.
Okay, any additional discussion? Joe, I'm sorry, I just hijacked your, you go right ahead.
Take it away, Mayor. You're doing fine.
Any additional discussion? Clerk, roll call, please.
Tevenoff,
Yes.
Krebs,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Chatham,
Yes.
Dan,
Thank you.
Okay, the next is transfer of appropriation resolution number 2022-46C. And that's whereas has been determined that it is now necessary to transfer appropriation from one major budget category to another major budget category in the budget year of 2022. Whereas the transfer of appropriation does not require the expenditure of more money than the total amount set out in the budget as finally determined by the state. Whereas the transfer is made at a regular public meeting, and whereas the transfer will be certified by the clerk treasurer. Now therefore be it resolved by the City of Madison City Council, Jefferson County, Indiana, that the following transfer of appropriations be made to the 2022 budget. and those are listed below in the kind of a graph or a table formatting, and that you can see. So I'll turn that over to Ms. McGee, or if anybody has any questions.
Just wanted to say on this one, this is what is in place of all those individual transfer requests that we typically do. We're doing it in bulk here. They're fairly small amounts. I think the total was 70,000 for the year-end transfer cleanup. And this is just going from different categories, where we appropriated in capital outlay but didn't spend it. We spent a little more in personal services. We're changing the categories on it. That's all that is. I do have the detail if anybody has questions about any particular number.
So Mindy, another situation where we're just moving between categories on the prescribed DLGF format?
Correct.
Okay, no increase in budget?
No.
Okay.
If we could have a motion in a second, please.
Motion that we approve resolution 46-C.
I'll second the motion.
Are there any further questions, comments, or et cetera? Are there any questions or comments from the audience? I'm assuming there are none, so if we could have a roll call vote.
Devenoff,
Yes.
Krebs,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Chatham,
Yes.
Dan DiTillo,
Thank you, council. Joe, we're ready for the fund encumbrance resolution, which is new for council.
Actually, it's not required to be a resolution. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. Sorry, Joe. I'll let you.
No, go right ahead. This is the 2022 encumbrances. This does not need to be in the form of a resolution. However, it does require council consent. So it has been presented to you, and they will be asking for council consent of this. And I'm requesting or suggesting that it be done in the form of a roll call due to the fact that we have some council members participating electronically. And Katie or Mindy, if you've got any thoughts or comments on this, that now would be the time.
Okay. So this is a process that has not been occurring in the past, but should have
Do
been.
you mind talking to him, Mike? Thank you.
I thought it was Mr. Mayor. So what we are doing is there are still expenses for 2022 that will have to be paid in January of 2023. This prevents funds from 2023 being spent on 2022 expenses. And so that is the purpose of the encumbrance.
Council, this hasn't happened in the past to my knowledge. This will save us about $103,000 on our 2023 budget. And I know in the past when those bills come in January, we start paying them, and that has definitely happened where all of a sudden our appropriations are running short because we're actually paying 13 months worth of bills in a particular item. This is slightly different than the one I sent you last night because it's about $50,000 less that we're going to encumber because I was trying to grab some money there were some funds that had quite a bit left in it, 25,000. I was trying to use those to pay some of these bills, but I can't pay outside the category, so I had to remove them. But anyway, so we're about $103,000 final that will carry over.
And Mindy, this is carrying over the appropriation so that it's a 2022 appropriation that's being paid in 2023 without affecting our 2023 budget order?
It is, and it will be listed on the appropriation reports that you'll get for 23 will show the 2023 appropriation that you approved in the budget process, and then on farther across there will be an encumbrant line that will show this amount for each of these budget lines. that you'll see, and, the total will include all of it.
Sounds good.
Okay, we'll go ahead with the roll call vote.
Any comments or questions? We'll move on. Okay.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Krebs,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Chatham,
Yes.
Dan DiTillo,
Okay, thank you, council.
All right, the next is an ordinance number 2022-33, and this is an ordinance of additional appropriations.
Joe, correction, it's 34.
I'm sorry.
it was 34.
34 is the first one.
Go ahead. Sorry, Joe.
Okay, 34, and it is before council on first reading, and it is a notice is hereby given to the taxpayers of Madison, Civil City, Jefferson County, Indiana, that the proper legal officers will consider the following additional appropriations in excess of the budget for the current year at their regular meeting place at City Hall, 101 West Main Street, Madison, Indiana, 47250, at 5:30 on the 20th day of December 2022. I'm assuming that's the 30th. However, and the funds and the additional appropriations are listed below. I believe Mindy or Katie can go through those in detail, but they're listed below. Taxpayers appearing at the meeting shall have the right to be heard. The additional appropriations, as finally made, will be referred to the Department of Local Government and Finance. The department will make a written determination as to the efficiency of the funds to support the appropriations within 15 days of the receipt certified of the action here taken. And Ms. Rampy, I think you can tell me if I'm wrong, but this is something that needs to be done by year end, so I believe it is your request that this be passed in 3 readings this evening.
Yes, once this is passed, then we will go ahead and complete and close out 2022.
So Joe, that was first reading. Do you want to, we need to have someone motion or move that we move to second reading?
Suspend the rules and move to second reading.
I move that we suspend the rules and move to second reading.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I second.
Krebs, second.
Okay. And since we have electronic, we'll probably need to do a roll call on that.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Krebs,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Chatham,
Yes.
Dan DiTillo,
Okay, I believe that's everybody passed unanimously to suspend the rules and move to second reading, and that is ordinance number 2022-33, and that is an ordinance of additional appropriations. And so now it is open for comment or questions as it pertains to this ordinance.
Would you like to explain what this is?
Yes. So this is the final transaction. This will be, even though it says additional appropriation, it really is just replacing funds that were already spent or spent but not appropriated. So you'll notice on the explanation for these amounts is on the front page of the reading memo. They did a really good job of detailing why these items needed to happen. You will notice that half of these funds are for airport, mostly in their NRO. Those funds were spent out of their NRO, which is fine, but the 2 things that airport had not been doing is having our BPW and safety board approve their claims, which we have started doing, and also appropriating money out of their NRO. So you'll remember that we appropriated 2 items out of their NRO in our 23 budget. One was a salary and one was for mowing, I believe. They will be back before you to request additional appropriations to spend the rest of those funds. They have to start appropriating the money they're spending out of their NRO.
actually it was for a grant match that had been brought for you previously.
Yeah, you've already done it once this year. So they're learning the new process as well, And then the other part for airport was out of their general fund, and that was a grant match as well. So, we're trying to get everybody so that, they are asking for appropriations of money that they need to spend. So if it doesn't happen in the budget process, we're gonna do it, as we should do it at other meetings as needed.
And we've had quite a few discussions with the Board of Aviation Commissioners on that process and are making progress with them.
Are there any further comments or questions on this ordinance? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to proceed to suspend the rules and proceed to third reading?
I move that we suspend the rules, move to third reading.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote on the suspension of those rules?
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Krebs,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Chatham,
Yes.
Dan DiTillo,
He's frozen. Dan, can you repeat yourself? You froze up.
Yes.
That counts
Okay.
twice. Thank you, council. These will all get posted.
Third reading.
Oh, I'm
We
so
gotta
sorry.
vote one more time.
Oh, that was on the third
Mr.
reading.
Oh, that's right.
All right, so on third reading, this is the ordinance number 2022-33.
34,
An
Joe.
ordinance of
Joe.
34.
34, thank you.
On my packet is 33, so I apologize. The ordinance of additional appropriations. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Krebs,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Chatham,
Yes.
Dan DiTillo,
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Now, thank you, council. These will get transacted, and Reedy is hoping to work with Katie and her staff and have the year closed out with all of these transactions. Their deadline, I think, is February 15th, but they anticipate having it done before that. As soon as that is done, we will get you final reports and new reports for 2023, and I think you'll be able to follow along throughout the year. We'll get them for you every month, and I think we're gonna be on a really good path for next year.
Thank you, Minnie.
The final ordinance to be considered tonight is ordinance number 2022-35, and this is the bond ordinance as it relates to additional bonding for Crystal Beach Pool Project. I would ask the council to consider suspending the rules and reading this in its entirety. I could read the whereases. However, there's an additional 16 pages, I believe, of ordinance there. And I would ask the council to suspend the rules in order to not require a formal reading of it in its entirety.
I move to suspend the rules and not require ordinance 22-35 to be read in its entirety.
I second.
Can we have a roll call vote on that?
yes. Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Dan DiTillo,
Yes.
Chatham,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
and Krebs.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Okay, this is ordinance number 2022-35, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Madison, Indiana, authorizing the issuance of economic development and local income tax revenue bond, Series 2023, to provide funds for a portion of the cost of the acquisition, construction, and installation of certain improvements to Crystal Pool and addressing other matters connected therewith. Whereas the City of Madison, Indiana, is a governmental unit and a political subdivision within the state of Indiana. And whereas the Jefferson County, Indiana, is a county council the county council has previously imposed the economic development income tax pursuant to Indiana Code 6-3.5-7 on the adjusted gross income of county taxpayers, which law has been recodified at Indiana Code 6-3.6, also known as the LIT Act, for the purposes of consolidating all local income taxes into a single article, which economic development tax has been reclassified as economic development project component of additional revenue derived from the expenditure rate under Indiana Code 6-3.6. And whereas the Common Council of the city has determined that it would be a public utility and benefit in the best interest of the city and the citizens to finance a portion of the cost of acquiring, constructing, and equipping Crystal Beach Pool and the cost of issuance of their bonds, therefore. And the Common Council deems it advisable to issue pursuant to the LIT Act and other applicable provisions of the Indiana Code bonds payable from the economic development LIT revenues for purposes of providing funds for the payment or reimbursement of a portion of the cost of the project, including preliminary and incidental expenses incurred in connection therewith, payment of the accrued interest of such bonds, if any, the funding of the reasonably required debt service, reserve to secure payment of such bonds if necessary, and the payment of costs of issuance of such bonds and other fees and charges associated with the issuance of such bonds, including the payment of fees and charges associated with obtaining credit enhancement for such bonds. And whereas Indiana Code 6-3.6-9, as amended, provides that revenue derived from the imposition of the economic development LIT shall be distributed to the county monthly on the first day of each month, and that upon receipt the county shall distribute to the city its share of such monthly distribution pursuant to Indiana Code 6-3.6-9. And pursuant to the Act, the city is authorized to pledge the city's monthly distributions to pay bonds, leases, and other obligations. And whereas the city has no prior pledges of economic development lit revenues to bond, lease, or other indebtedness obligations, and whereas the original principal amount of the 2023 bonds hereafter, together with outstanding principal amount of previously issued bonds, which constitute a debt to the city, is no more than 2% of 1/3 of the total net assessed valuation of the city. And whereas the Common Council desires to establish its intent pursuant to the Treasury Regulation 1.150-2 and Indiana Code 5-1-14-6-C, that all or a portion of the cost of the project are to be reimbursed from the proceeds of the bonds. And whereas the Common Council now finds that all conditions proceeding to the adoption of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the 2023 bonds have been complied with in accordance with the provisions of the LIT Act and other applicable provisions of the Indiana Code. And whereas the Common Council consequently seeks to authorize the issuance of the 2023 bonds pursuant to the Act and sale of such 2023 bonds pursuant to the provisions of the Act.
I know this is the first reading, and at the next meeting we'll have a more detailed presentation about the status of Crystal Beach. At the December 20th meeting, we had indicated that the Board of Public Works had taken under advisement the bid from R.L. Turner for the pool replacement project that we've been working on for approximately a year. The actual pool replacement project has been an ongoing discussion for over 2 decades. What this authorization does is creates a placeholder so that we can pursue financing in 2023 as we work with R.L. Turner and our other financial sources for the final design and construction cost of the pool. So there's no action being taken now. We're not borrowing money right now. But what we'll talk about in more detail next week is really the status of Crystal Beach's pool replacement, and over the course of the next probably 6 weeks, bring that to conclusion. And our desire here is working with council and the redevelopment authority and the redevelopment commission and other partners is to finance and proceed with the replacement of the Crystal Beach swimming pool. Joe?
Hearing nothing else, I guess that'll just proceed to second reading at the next meeting, which is next week.
Okay.
Was this not one we need to have wrapped up before the end of the year?
No.
Okay.
No, we can follow this one in the normal course.
Well, yeah, there may be a possibility that we could be asking for a suspension of the rules to go to third reading at the next meeting, but I don't know if that's going to be the case or not.
We'll have more information next week relative to the project. You know, we've been working around the clock for it, so, but we've made a lot of progress. That's what I want to say. Moving on, Council, are there any reports, recommendations, or other business from standing or select study committees? Hearing none, we do not have any reports of city officials or bills on third reading or second reading. Now, before we go into mayor's comments and conclude tonight's meeting, we'll open up the floor. If there's any public comment, we just ask people to come to the podium if they'd like to address the mayor's office and city council, and identify yourself and what your statement is, please. Okay. So moving on to mayor's comments as we conclude. First of all, everybody, thank you so much for making time tonight, and it's been, as I mentioned earlier, quite the year. Probably around February, we will do a complete review of the year in review, and also talk about goals and objectives for 2023. I'm surprised that our clerk treasurer did not make an announcement about the 2023 budget order.
Oh, which is now completed, or
Yes.
will be, as soon as we get this last items submitted, our 1782 will.
The 1782
down.
notice, I believe,
Was approved.
was approved
Yes.
today by Department of Local Government Finance. And what you're observing is introduction of more sophistication into the process, more transparency for all of us and all the departments. It's required a lot of conversations with different departments and internally, as well as very dependent upon staffing up Clerk Treasurer Rampy's office. And but anyway, 2023 is the budget's been approved, and we're very, very happy about that. And then I also want to say thank you to all the street crews who did a very, very good job getting us through our first severe weather event last weekend, as well as all the volunteers at Salvation Army for helping serve those without shelter in the frigid temperatures. So, as you can see now, we're already phasing out of the year and moving into 2023. So we'll get back to a bit more of a normal routine, and I'll stop there. I want to wish everybody a happy new year, and I'll open the floor up to any council members here who would like to say anything.
Second, your comments on the street crews. Main Street looked wonderful, especially given how nasty and cold out it was. They really worked hard.
Yeah, and they worked really well with the county, the state, and you know, I didn't have any transportation issues, and it worked really well. On here, everybody has the blow in the new year. Dan, I'm sorry. You have something for us over there? Anything else, council? Well, with that being said, then let's ring in the new year. I don't know.
Oh, God.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Oh, God. Happy New Year,
Is it a twist? Yay!
Boy, that was very eventful. Council, thank you. Happy New Year. Be safe out there.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I second the motion.
All those in
All
favor?
Please say aye.
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 Thank you, Dan. Dan, thank you.